Good morning. I think I just said that, but we'll do it again. So happy Monday morning. Let's say it that way. In a beautiful, nasty Sacramento. For the record, when I was recruited out here, this was not a part of the plan. I'm upset about it, but we're going to talk to the board about this rain, cold stuff. It didn't come here for this. So thanks for everybody being here. Another day in paradise. I just wanted to come on and say I really appreciate you guys' willingness to do this. I know everybody's time is extremely important. It's funny, I just got off another call this morning where, I was bragging about the benefit of this network and what it's really going to help us do collectively, and hopefully help each agency be able to do individually as well. You guys are going to be a big part of helping us move the needle on the conversation on what the investment into CSBG and the investment into all the programs that we run. And what does that really do to help us impact, other social outcomes that happen throughout our state. So just know that the work you're putting in is going to be very impactful multiple times over throughout the next decade. So I just really appreciate it. I know it takes away from the work you do on a constant basis. So I'll be quiet now so you can kick it off. Most of you have met both Lawrence Heiner, our Training and Technical Assistance Director, and Frederick Richmond, which is, I would now say, an older friend of mine. I guess we've known each other for a while now.
Yeah, long time, David.
Yeah, when I first started in this and really got into results management, Fred was my trainer, and so he yelled at me about everything that I did not know at the time, because you couldn't have told me anything at 29. I thought I knew it all already. So we've had a great relationship over the last decade, focusing in on this. And again, when we look at SROI, this was an original part of that ROMA being able to track and show our results. And so I'm just excited that we are the first state that's trying to do this statewide. So without further ado, I think I'll turn it over to Fred. Is that right, Lawrence?
I'll turn it over to Lawrence first if you want to say anything. So
yeah,
I appreciate it, David.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you for the kind words.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I'm Lawrence Heiner. I'm the director of training and technical assistance for Cal Kappa. And Fred will be leading this project. I'm here really to provide a coordination role and help to keep things kind of pulled together on the Cal Kappa side. Fred's got a lot of great information to share with us today that's all led up to this point. And I won't steal any of his thunder. Some of those documents we have shared out. If you have not received them, just let me know. We'll share copies of anything that we've got that is pertinent to the project. So Fred, if you'd like to kick things off for the morning.
Sure. So thank you, everyone. I know some of you from other work, and it's a pleasure that, frankly, for you to participate. My organization, our organization, the Center for Applied Management Practices, if you have the blue Roma book or the gray Roma book, that was us or is us. In the original material developed years ago, it's always been obviously updated. We had a chapter on return on investment, and it was the most popular of the 7 or 8 modules we had. Unfortunately, it came at the end, and the training people felt was a little bit too long. So reluctantly, we took it out, even though it was probably the most popular. And frankly, it tied everything together. So that's what happened. So we have always offered the course as an independent. Obviously, for some of you were on the PowerPoint, that training, but it actually can be offered as a full day course. So what I've always had this dream, and that was to find a living example or a living place to actually do this. Because the irony in the whole thing is, I'd say in the last 6 months, I just keep getting hit with questions from all over, not just community action. Do you know anything about return on investment, social return on investment, et cetera? So I think this is a wonderful opportunity to do this. And especially a state as large and as sophisticated as California. I should also put down, we're also working with Communify directly these days with their software as well. So it's nice to have them on board. So very briefly, our organization is based both in Pennsylvania and Denver, Colorado. We've been around 25 years, and a lot of the things that you have probably done in community action things like national performance indicators, Roma. These are things we created, the introduction of scales and things like that of our toolkits. So I would, again, really appreciate the opportunity of really testing this out, piloting this, so to speak, on a statewide basis, and really taking the best and brightest here to come up with something that could be, frankly, a national pilot that we show other states on how to do this. I think the potential is there. And I mentioned to Lawrence, I got a call the other day from another state, completely unknown, asked me if I knew anything about this. It was state director. So again, so there's interest that's out there. So what I'd like to do is maybe turn this over and quick who you are, your agency, what you do, and I'm following the agenda that was sent out very briefly. And a sentence or two, obviously we want to keep to the hour and a half here and go over the content, but just a quick sense of why you chose to participate and what you hope to gain from this. So I'll save our colleague, if you'll notice there's a person, Tom Destino, he works with us, we'll introduce him at the end. Okay, and so I guess, well, Jim, I see you're there, but you usually invite yourself to everything, so I can't, you know. So if you would like, I've known Jim a while, obviously, can have a little fun. So Jim, anything you would like to say about yourself? And
I've been involved in community action for many decades, and as Fred indicated, I've been involved in many of the developmental task forces, the grant application process, the grantee program management system, the standards of effectiveness, I was on the monitoring and assessment task force that developed Roma initially, been on the task forces that updated I was the project director for the first 5 years of the Community Services Block Grant Information System from 1981 to 1986. The initial effort to get that off the ground, and then the ASCAS took it over. Anyhow, as Fred says, I invite myself to a lot of things. I've always loved community action and helping define systems that make community action agencies more effective. So here we go.
Wow, thank you, Jim. And I forgot about the history there. I mean, I knew a lot of it, but yeah, you're a walking encyclopedia. Fantastic, thank you. So I guess I see Pritika's next on my screen.
Hi, everybody. Pritika Ram with Community Action Partnership of Kern. We're primarily in Kern County, but with some of our programs like Migrant Alternative Payment Program, 211 and WIC, we're kind of up and down California. In the last 3 years, more specifically 2 years, I think we've made a more intentional effort of becoming certified in what we consider best practices of community action agencies. I'm Roma certified. We have a cohort of 4 going through Roma certification now. Through the grants and development team, we're really trying to incorporate the models of assessment as it relates to social services, and having a work group like this that actually works day to day on our programs, I think will help us kind of identify what's the best way of assessing impact and identifying a return on investment, while still considering the human aspect of the services that we offer. And so just looking forward to what we can gain out of this work group. I'll be participating along with our Chief Finance Officer, Tracy Webster, who'll join shortly. I think that's a good combo because we see grants and funding coming in through the agency with different lenses. And so I'm glad that we're both able to participate. Thanks so much.
Thank you. That was very, very helpful. So Aubrey, I see you're next here.
Hi, my name is Aubrey Richardson. I'm the planner / data analyst at the Northern California Indian Development Council. We're a limited purpose community action agency focused on American Indian, Alaskan Native, and Native Hawaiian people, primarily in Northwestern California, but we have multiple programs across the state. And we also just recently jumped into Oregon as well. I think that we're interested in being involved because we advocate for a lot of smaller tribes. We're a network of tribes and often partner with tribal governments. And I think, you know, in that role, it's helpful for us to be able to explain with numbers how much of an impact funding can make. and also how important the programs are in our communities. So that's kind of what we're interested in getting out of this.
I like that. Explain with numbers, and always a couple of smiling faces helps round out the presentation. So thank you, thank you, Aubrey. So Linda.
Good morning, Linda Timbers with Project Go, and I'm the ED there, have been for 42 years. I think I know Jim most definitely, know a lot of you. Project Go became the community action agency in Placer County about 10 years ago, maybe 12. We took over from the county when they decided they didn't want to run it any longer. We actually have been the weatherization and heap entity for Placer and Nevada County for the 40 years that I've been involved. I took an interest in the SROI because of the weatherization programs that we do. And I mentioned this in your previous webinar. We're always looking to figure out how to quantify the social value of what we do in weatherization. And in particular, I'm wondering if there would be a way that we could incorporate this into the DOE REM audit tool. California has a really hard time making the REM audit work for us in a lot of our areas. And I think that if we could incorporate a social value into the REM audit, we might be able to, at least get closer. So that was my thought initially with this. I talked with my CSBG program director, who just also took over our energy program due to an unexpected retirement of our 28-year program director. So he's got his hands full right now, but he is our Roma person. He has one other person that he is training right now. And I know that this would have significant value for our CSBG programs as well. So that's my 2 bits.
Thank you.
And thank you for inviting me.
Sure. Well, you just gave me a homework assignment. I need to learn a little bit about DOE REM. So thank you. I'll look into that.
Well,
Lily?
Frederick, we just aside, we've got 5 years or 4 years of DOE BIL money coming. And we're going to be doing audits like crazy throughout the nation. So I think this would be a great national addition to the team.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I always interested in learning something new. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Lily, I see you're next here.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Lily Rivera Graves with CSET. We're over in Tulare County. I'm a data analyst here, been with the agency for over 21 years. I've worked in different departments along the way. And right now I'm more in a administrative capacity level, like process all the contracts for the agency, oversee all the reporting for the agency, anything CSBG related, your community action plans, strategic plans, organizational standards, all that flows through my desk. And so for us, it's been important to kind of showcase our numbers. And more recently, we've taken our CSBG annual data that we have to report every year, but really analyzing that data and being able to kind of showcase to our community and the staff and the participants that we work with on those results. How many people did we impact for this program or that program, and kind of displaying that with different boards in our social media, etc. So we're always looking at a way to really paint that picture, right, for the agency and that impact in the community. So interested to see where this goes. I'm also the Roma implementer for the agency as well. So interested to see what this group puts together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, so far it's interesting. Everyone talks positively about Roma. Once in a while, people go, I don't want to do Roma. I'm glad everyone seems to be on that wavelength so far. So Pat, I see you're next.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Pat Keelan, CEO for Communify. And just a little background about me. I transitioned from a COO position at Mid-Florida Community Services about 5.5 years ago, came to California. I had become a master Roma trainer when I was in Florida. I don't get to flex those muscles much anymore. However, what I recognized right away coming into the organization was that there was a tremendous need to implement Roma agency-wide, have experienced some challenges in terms of the siloing within the organization, like many community action agencies around the country. We are currently implementing the eLogic Genesis model with Fred and implementing an agency-wide universal intake system so that we create a service delivery system that ensures that there's no wrong door, regardless of which door a client might knock on. We're going to ensure that they are referred to the 16 various programs and services within the organization that they are eligible for. So we're very excited about working on this project. Obviously, increasing effectiveness, efficiency in our service delivery is important, but also being able to demonstrate through the Roma model and hopefully by demonstrating the social return on the investment, the impact that our services are having in our community. So that's it in a nutshell.
Sound like a rehearsed stump speech, Pat. Pretty good. All right, David. Hi.
Hi, thank you, Fred. I'm David Jimenez. I'm the interim COO at Communify in Santa Barbara County as well. I'm responsible for our CSPG reporting, and I also oversee quality assurance at the agency as well as a HHS program evaluation grant. So that all kind of ties in to the social return on investment. I'm also a certified Roma implementer. And as Pat said, just looking to be able to be better at impact reporting, demonstrate how we are moving people, moving the dial on poverty and changing those lives. Trying to move to a model of digging into the numbers aside just from reporting them. So this will be helpful there.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. And I think last one, Cynthia, you look like you're mobile there.
Yeah, I'm in my car, but I'm not driving.
Okay.
You can hear me okay?
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
So I am the executive director of CAP Sonoma County, and I'm about almost 6 weeks in. So I'm getting to know my programs here. I don't have a CAP background. I've been a partner with this community action for several years, but I do have a background in evaluation and evidence-based programming and results-based accountability. And so I'm excited to connect that to this work and learn more about Roma and all of these models, because they sound very similar to what I do have knowledge in and what my agency is already doing. So it sounds like it's very connected and exciting. So I'm looking forward to being part of it.
Great. Well, thank you. Welcome aboard. Neat. And introduce Tom Destino, who just recently joined us. Tom, if you just want to say hello.
Yeah, hello. Thank you very much. It's really an honor to be here. It's such an important meeting, and I've really enjoyed, although I've only been around a week or so, I've asked Fred several weeks ago to send me materials. And Cynthia's comments were probably a good segue to mine, Fred, because it's fairly new, but have a PhD in social science. My background's in education. So a lot of the sort of discussion of social science, social factors, social determinants of health, kind of familiar with all that. So I was ready to move on and really excited to do important work to help people. I mean, that's my goal. And I'm just going to sort of leave it at that. And I certainly hope to be, to see you all, into the future. So I'll leave it at that right now. Fred, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So appreciate it. Okay, so what I'd like to do then is thank you for the directness and the interest and hopefully the enthusiasm that stays on. I really, really believe in this stuff. I think everyone here clearly does as well. Actually, Lawrence, give me an assist. If we can just go through quickly that preliminary plan, that if you want to bring that up on the screen, that would help me. So I'm going to go through this fairly quickly and then go into discussion. Now, what I'm following is the agenda here. And there we go. Okay. So I think everyone was sent a copy. And the difference between the black font and the blue font was the black font was sort of a description and the blue font was the implementation. So essentially, we accomplished the first two. That is, we had a PowerPoint, we updated it for CalCappa. I'm assuming that most of you were on that. And Lawrence, if I'm correct, did you post that on the website for CalCappa if people wanted to look at it?
I have posted a few different things, but I'll be sure that this is one of them.
Yeah.
I think this is up there, but I'll be sure that.
Yeah, I thought it was too. There's about, what, 70 slides, and it'll give you a sense of, with examples of the SROI process. It's what we have used in classroom training. The difference is when you're in a classroom, people bring their calculators and we actually create real, what I call SROI scenarios as well. So the second part is, well, that's what we're doing right now, identifying agencies to participate in a pilot. And essentially the recruitment that CalCappa has done through Lawrence and David. As you can see, we're here today. So let's take a look at task 3. And again, I must say, I borrowed this because I thought it was so well written. What's interesting is when I started looking into this a few years back, what kind of surprised me is some of the best material I had seen came out of the United Kingdom, Great Britain, England, and they were ahead of us on some of these things. I guess I'm trying to remember why they did that, but they've been into this longer than we have. So they were these key principles that I thought we just simply adapt and involve. As you can see them here, they're pretty straightforward. Understand stakeholders, and we can define as part of our work group who those stakeholders will be. We want to understand the values, the objectives of the stakeholders, which we kind of go and you want to explain the social services, why we do it, why it's a good investment ultimately. The third bullet is there's many things we can plug into this, but we want to identify as a work group, triage it, what are the things that are most important for us to put into our pilot and why. Essentially include things that are most important is how I interpret is what is material. One thing I've learned over the years is do not overclaim. I think the magic of this methodology is that those of you who've taken Roma, we've had that famous baseball analogy where if you're hitting 1 out of 3, you're a superstar. And of course, the whole point of that is if we were not taught that 1 out of 3 was excellent, we would think people were failing. We want to use that same thinking that says, we're okay 1 out of 3, and here's why. And frankly, the business world, the for-profit world operates on that model, okay? Because they don't sell, if you're in a car dealership, they don't sell every car that comes in there. So it's a type of thing where I think we want to use, and people have hidden behind performance. They were afraid to say, instead of saying we're only 25, 30% successful, they should have been screaming on the top of the roof, we're super successful, but we need to put those numbers behind it so we are comparable to the private sector. So the overclaim, I don't think we have to overclaim at all. I think we just need to be straightforward. And the last two, which again, anyone who's involved in numbers, evidence-based, we want to be transparent. In all the years I have been doing what I have been doing, I have never lost a challenge. It's not that I'm brilliant, it's just that I footnoted everything I did. So in other words, there was a very transparent, I was very clear. They may not have agreed with the results, but they understood my method and they understood what I was saying was honest. And then the last one is to verify the result. In other words, is our work good enough that an independent agency, and one of the groups we work with is a large agency in Denver. We had done all the work on an employment program, but since the city of Denver funded it, they hired the University of Colorado to verify it. and they verified it 100%. So everyone came out looking good. The city got more money, excuse me, the agency got more money, the results were verified, and now they don't bother. They just know that the agency themselves is an honest broker and can essentially produce the numbers and verify the results. So there's a lot of benefits of doing that. So let's look at the fourth task. Okay, and that's essentially more the organizational. What we'll do from this meeting is develop a little more formal work plan, and we'll find out about our roles and responsibilities in a few minutes as we talk about this. And essentially figuring out kind of who does what agencies step forward, what we're going to contribute, and I'd hopefully work as a team and as a group. Number 5, we need to identify what are the programs, and there's so many to choose from. And if we take a look here, the first 2, as you could see, are employment and training weatherization. I think we all intuitively understand that you invest in those 2 programs, they provide a benefit, and they're much more measurable. You know, weatherization to some degree is, and I think if those who attended the SROI webinar, there was a wonderful example of the project in Louisville, Kentucky, that had both ROI, return on investment, and social return. The difference is some of those are monetary, others are social, which was mentioned earlier. If we go to the next page there, Lawrence, thanks. And then things like Head Start, I think people sometimes see that as childcare. We're all aware of that. It's sort of understood. We need to think about really the multiple impacts that Head Start have and the follow-up. Head Start have been wonderful data collectors over the years. What we need to do is monetize some of what they do and things like that. We have sort of a built-in database. Childcare is another one. Again, that ties back to employment and training. And frankly, any other program that is available that you think would be important and worthwhile, that not only might meet the needs of your community, but something that would be extended to California as a state, other programs. So, you know, things like that. I had mentioned, I'll say Aubrey raised a hand there. I didn't see that. So Aubrey, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering with regard to possible programs, are we trying to find programs that are easiest to use to develop this, or programs that might be more difficult, but that, you know, apply for our agency, I guess, to make sure that the SROI can be as flexible as possible?
I could answer that, and anyone else could as well. My first thought is put everything on the table. Okay, in other words, let's see what's there. And we want to see the value in terms of cost benefit ourselves. Do we want to put a ton of time into a program that's sort of an outlier, or is that program has something we can learn from, or has other applications and implications elsewhere? So I think the value of identifying a program that may be problematic is just, that's it. In other words, is this program so difficult that it's hard to do? I think that there's a learning piece in there. So I would say right now, you know, sort of inclusive, open the door. That's just my off the top of my head. Anyone else want to add a comment to that? Okay, I guess we're okay short term on that.
Just real quickly, Fred. Yeah, I think if we can select, and we can obviously talk about this more later, but if we can select a program model that is, you know, obviously we all have in common, like weatherization, and given the fact that you've already done some work around weatherization,
Right.
that might be a strong place to start, but that's my 2 cents worth.
No, I think it's a triage thing. In other words, you have 2 paths here. One, you certainly go with something familiar and everyone knows weatherization, or LIHEAP is another one, you know, that's sort of an ally. And then at least I think part of what we do is, I think at least in the beginning, an identification process, let's look at all possible programs, and then we'll decide which ones we want to take to the next level. Okay. So I think that sort of fits some of your thinking, Pat, on that. The example which we have here, this is the logic model that we wrote for an asthma prevention program. Actually, Lawrence, I think you have that up there for a moment. I'll just take a minute on that because I think everyone has it. if you can bring that up for a second. There we go. This is a real study. We had done this, and what was extraordinary about this project was that the agency didn't do this. This was a public health nurse who got it into her head that she wanted to monetize the impact of the program. I mean, I learned from her, to be honest about this, goes back a while. So what we did is, for teaching purposes, as well as to sort of explain it, we adapted a logic model. And as you can see very briefly in here, you see the problem and the need. Kids had asthma, they had rates of absence, they were sick, etc. You could see, if we do a classic logic model training, you go to the outcome next, and you see reduce ER visits, reduce physician visits, reduce school absences, child not repeating a grade. And then if you look at your intervention, your service, a public health nurse provided training, etc. And as you can see from the fourth and fifth column, the outcome indicator and the outcome, ER and physician, these is not hypothetical, it's really happened. ER and physician visits were reduced, and mother went to the workforce, and then we had our database. So if you keep going to the next one, Lawrence, just go down, thanks. All right, and so then we did is we put the dollars on it. So essentially, this goes back a way, so this costs a little lower. I didn't upgrade them for inflation, but you have the cost of an ER visit, a cost of physician visit. It's arithmetic. You do the math in column 4. You show how much it cost. Then by reducing the fifth column, the outcome savings, you come up with a number. And if you go all the way to the right, you'll see that the ER visits reduced X numbers of dollars, physician visits dollars, savings per child. Now, if you go to the next slide. Thanks. Okay, thank you, Lily. What I learned, again, is we understood the monetary saving, okay? And you can see that in yellow there. You actually could show it. That was a pure ROI. Dollars in, which was the nurse, the cost of the nurse and her work, and then the savings measured in dollars, ER visits. That's a true return. That's not an SROI, that's a return on investment. The S comes in under social, where you have a bigger picture, but you would have to, you put it in there, but the challenge is to monetize it. So if you look at the cost avoidance, and this was a learning curve for me, I was new at this. School absences were reduced. That's from the parents. We talked to the parents. Ability to do homework. Child not repeating a grade. How do you put a value in the psychology of a child who's not left behind? Very, very powerful. Okay. The other one is, I did not realize how many mothers quit working. These were really sick kids. I mean, think about the psychology, the self-worth, and of course the monetary. So all of these were under there. And then the last one, of course, the stress. I'll speak from personal experience. One of my children was a serious asthmatic when he was younger. Until we learned how to manage it, we got to know the people in the emergency room and figured it out eventually. So, but the point is, I can tell you from personal experience, those things really happen. So if any of you have had sick kids, you would know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so moving ahead here, I just wanted to point that out, that these real life examples catch people's attention. And that S part, and now the thing is, if you think about it, you could monetize repeating a grade, right? We know it costs to go to school. We could monetize increased income from a workforce, school absences, but the social gives us a license to go beyond the money. All right, so Lawrence, so we can go back to the agenda, that would be great. Not the agenda, I'm sorry, the plan there. Okay, so I'm on project implementation task 6. And essentially, so what we're doing now, we're essentially formalizing the project. We have 3 agents. Well, we have Cal Kappa. We have, I believe Lauren said to me, 8 agencies. Oh, there's a typo in that shouldn't have been Communified. That should have been the agency, should have been Community Action. Just saw that. And us, Camp. We know who the people are. We want to, it seems like everyone who's on today is committed to the work group. You could certainly know. And I guess as you see the next steps here, which we can, this would be, I guess, a homework assignment, but I do want to get some feedback in a minute. The way I see it, but again, everyone here is an expert in their own world. So I obviously want to hear from you. We want to develop programs. We started talking about that a few minutes ago. What would be good for SROI? The next thing is we do have to inventory what are all those services, and again, just put them out there. What are the interventions? What are the services? If you're doing a logic model, you just have a whole list of bullets right down. And essentially, some of those I mentioned you pick up through the MPIs, the state CSBG plans. And what we want to do is get a uniform data set so we're all using the same language and have the same definitions. We know that from Roma, every service should produce an outcome. So we want to get all of those outcomes and link them to the services. And as you remember in Roma, you could have one service could have multiple outcomes, things like that. Where it gets a little trickier, the costs, okay? And this is where I think your CFOs, fiscal people can come in. Cost is not what was spent. I think we all understand that, you know, so when you say an hour's worth of time, what goes into that hour? Overhead, parking, you know, sick leave, you know, how an accountant or an accounting group would monetize the true costs, things like that. And so we want to be able to do that and again, come up with a methodology. And my guess is most agencies have similar ways of calculating overhead and things like that. What is missing a lot of times from that is we're not monetizing our referrals. And it seems to me that if a referral is part of the case, right? So the person comes in and we make a referral, and we have to decide formal or informal, meaning we follow up a document or we just give them a one-way, you know, notification. Someone else paid the freight. So in a true cost scenario, we need to know what it cost the other agency to produce that service. And you'll see our costs will go up. So the next part is not only the outcome, and this is probably all of the possibilities. The hardest part is how do you monetize that outcome? Okay, and I think we understand that. Some are classical, like employment, I got a job, I got some benefits. It's worth this, I reduced subsidized benefits, things like that. We have to come up with the methodology of what we're talking about in terms of monetizing, then come up with the actual ways of doing that. And then the last bullet there is what I was talking about with the asthma case is monetary values where we can for intangible outcomes, you know, things like that. So let's take a look at number 7. I think that's the last one on our list here. Oh, that was, yeah, okay. And when I just brought another tool, there are 2 tools I think that could be our friends in this. One, we talked about the logic model, and the other is using the Roma scales. Jim Masters mentioned earlier that he had put together the monitoring and assessment task force. When I first started out in this, myself and another person, we actually were the staff to the original MATF around 95, 96. Jim was already doing this for 10 years. I'd never heard of community action. And someone had brought in a scale, and they actually used a football field, you know, the 10-yard lines along a football field. And they were showing progress, how someone would run or throw a ball. And I saw that scale and I thought, well, they're just talking about services. If I could change that and make it outcomes, then I'd have a very useful tool. So what you see here is an adaptation of a standard employment scale with salary and benefits. And as you could see, again, not teaching this, but just showing how you could use a tool like this, monetize it, and then adapt it and show the total costs and the total value of the inputs in terms of the cost of doing it, the outputs or the outcomes in terms of the value. But the point is, if you look at the first table or the first table chart, that's our documentation, okay? That's where we are transparent. We're explaining how did we get those numbers. Now, it took a lot of work to get it reduced to 1 page, but the point is that's a very powerful tool. So we want to be able to do something like that as we move along. And then the last one I want to get is number 8. And this is, it's in our proposal, well, it's in our essentially contract with CalCappa. We want to be able to build a standalone calculator. Working with Pat and David and Communify, we're building that into their software, so they have it integrated into their software base. But in all fairness, we don't want you to have to buy our software, okay? So even though I'd love you to do that, but that's not what the goal here is to do. So what we're talking about doing is a downloadable, I'm not calling it an app because it's not an app, but it would be a simple calculator that once we figure this all out, It's a matter of coding it and building it and then just dropping, basically go to a website and just pulling it down. So one of the goals is to have a calculator that everyone could use for a very simple tool that would at least give you a window into return on investment or social return on investment. So that's really going through the second item on the agenda and the third item. So I just, there's two, there's what application, and I think we're good here, Lawrence, with the, so we can maybe go back to ourselves. There we go. Thank you. Okay. So Cynthia joined us, right? Okay. Hi. Cynthia, do you want to say who? I guess, yeah, I'm doing this quickly, but do you want to say hello?
I was here before. I just was in my car. I just changed that.
That's okay. You look different, Cynthia. What can I say? All right. All right. Didn't want to make a mistake. So, all right.
Hey, Fred, it looks like Crystal and Tracy jumped on though while we were.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay. So let's have Tracy introduce herself.
Hi, sorry, I had another meeting. My name is Tracy Webster. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Community Action Partnership of Kern.
Oh, okay, great, great. Thank you, Tracy. And Crystal is one of us in camp. Do you want to say hello, Crystal?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Crystal. I'm the project manager and business analyst with the Center for Applied Management Practices. Okay.
And Crystal is also the lead person working with Communify with the eLogic as well. So just want to point out. Okay. So what I'd like to do is there's two other items here, but I'm open for discussion. The which I guess was sort of mentioned in the introduction. First of all, does anyone have any feedback on this? Because we'll coordinate this, and then specifically, I guess, how could I say, create assignments. I hate to be that overt about this, but I think that we have to sort of do, and sort of an open-ended. So is anyone want to jump in for any thoughts on this?
This is kind of out of left field. It's been a while since I looked at the SROI presentation. Is this like connected to economics? Like, is this coming out of economic theory or?
You know, I've never been asked that question. I'm not sure how to answer that. I mean, it is clearly economics. I think it would fit under that realm. I mean, if you think about return on investment in the for-profit, I guess that would be considered economics, right? I mean, business. So let me ask you, how are you associating that, Aubrey?
Well, I got my undergrad in economics, and you know, the idea of like quantifying value, you know, makes me think of microeconomics and you know, how they would determine, you know, for example, like the value of lives for insurance companies and
Sure.
things like that. It just reminded me of, I was just curious.
No, you're absolutely right. Insurance companies, if anyone knows how actuarial tables are created, it is based on pure economics, lifespan, illness. I mean, we know how that works. For what it's worth, years ago, I had an encounter with a pit bull and did not come out too well. And I remember talking to the lawyers, and they said, Fred, if you were a woman, you'd be worth a lot more. You know, I was bitten. So apparently a woman had more value than a guy on a dog bite. Now that was, there it was pure economics. I mean, someone calculated that. I wasn't terribly offended. I was bitten on the arm, so it wasn't too bad, you know, but anyway. But they also said if you're bitten on the face, you could have made a lot of money. But then again, who would want to have a dog bite on their face, you know? So it wasn't worth it, but anyway. But yeah, I mean, look, I think part of my hidden agenda, which is not really hidden, I've been an advocate for years on this stuff. And honestly, I get kind of sick and tired of people looking at us like, well, they're nonprofits, they don't know what they're doing, they're this, they're that. That's not true. And I want to add this tool to simply push back and be on par, on level with these folks. And so you could talk to the business world, you talk to the board, you talk their language, and you win because they're not expecting it. You know, and the other thing, I was talking internally to Tom the other day, I see community action as a prevention model. In other words, if you're thinking about a scale, it's built right in the prevention line. And what we have to say is, when we have stabilized someone, we should be jumping up and down because we prevented something worse from happening, and that has a value. And I think we need to change the thinking that when people say nothing has changed, we want to go, you're absolutely right. Let me tell you, we're stable. And yet in the medical field, stability is rewarded, right? You're stable in emergency, you're stable in a hospital. So I want to change the conversation and get them thinking that we are part of the social fabric that holds things together. And again, not overclaim it, but want to make real clear that we are vital for doing this work. And we have obviously intelligent people doing this, but I don't think we take full advantage of the tools. And for so many years, collecting data was a compliance issue, right? You collected it, you put it in a report, you gave it away, you never look back. Well, let's look at this. Head Start have been excellent data collectors. I think more and more are looking at their data, but in many ways, for many years, it was a one-way transfer, so things like that. So, but, at the end of the day, I want to push this stuff as advocates because, without commenting politically, there's so many people that think they know our business when in fact they don't. And I think we need to educate people, okay, in a polite way, numbers and things like that. So hope that answered your question, Aubrey. So, all right. Listen, doesn't hurt having an economics background now, does it? So, all right, good. All right, so I guess the question under application there is, I think, sort of talk internally. I mean, one of the things that I think, again, and you can talk to me about this, could this help you educate and orient your own staff to this? Because I think what starts internally, to get people on board. Anyone have any thoughts on that in terms of using this? And the one thought, actually, I'll give Lawrence credit here. Lawrence popped an idea into my head. This is a few weeks ago. He said, you need to take this and share it with the caseworkers. In other words, share it with the staff. Is that correctly catching you there, Lawrence? Yeah. In other words, they need to know themselves the impact of what they do. They may think that they're not doing a good job when in fact they may be doing a great job. I think about self-esteem and, I think all that type of issues that, and look at the turnover and burnout in caseworkers. So I think giving them some additional tools to say, hey, you did okay, things like that. So I don't know, Lawrence, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, just briefly. A lot of agencies right now are paying attention to employee engagement, and this is one of those tools that helps with that. So I thought I'd plug it in. So those that are thinking about employee engagement, the result of this work will aid, that in the capacity that Fred was talking about, being able to demonstrate in very real terms the value of the work that's being done out in the field, and particularly for those folks that haven't had a lot of time to experience, kind of the impacts personally, themselves, newer staff, that kind of thing, that don't have as much exposure to the impact of the agency. It can be really valuable right away. So that's where that's.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fred.
No, that's great. No, I think that's so important. I like it. Okay, so we have a whole other area, employee engagement. I mentioned this agency in Denver. They changed their job descriptions to include data entry, timely, all of those things. And now they're changing it again to put performance in it. We're working with them to do that. So it's part of a job now. In other words, I don't know how many of you have actually put that into someone's job. I think you probably have a traditional social work model in the job descriptions, but part of it is, do the job, document it, and as one of the agencies said to me one day, and tell everyone how good a job you're doing, which is what should be done. And potentially you could probably tie that to compensation as well. So I don't want to go down that path. I'll let you think about that. But I think, as Lawrence sort of educated me recently, I think bringing it back to the employee is critical, and also sharing it with the clients themselves. My own experience in that is when we first started implementing the scales, and we showed the continuum from in crisis to thriving. And in this one agency, a couple of the clients saw the numbers and I think I've told this story before, but excuse me if I have. One of the clients took a yellow Post-it, put their number like a 5 or 6 and put it on their chest and was walking around the agency as a 5 or 6. And I got to admit, I was horrified. I thought, my God, they think we're reducing them to a number. And after we asked the question, he said, no, you're missing the point, basically. It's the first time I understood where I stood. In other words, on that continuum of 1 to 10, they saw where they were and they saw what that progress would be. So in a way, if we could also monetize, which we can do in the scales, you have a whole different dimension. What does it take to live? You know, we know all the, you know, the stories about, you know, living wage and things like that. So there's a lot we can do with this. And I realize I'm sort of, you know, popping different ideas here, but we can create a whole new model out of this whole thing. And to me, what's important, if you have 8 agencies putting their name on it and sign off as a group, that's a very, very powerful statement. Also coming out of California, you know, you're a large state. So, though I understand you're a very cold, wet state, but I'm amazed. I'm in Pennsylvania and it's warmer in Pennsylvania. It is in Los Angeles. That makes no sense. So, so that's sort of where I am. So I guess the next part would be, let me ask you, how do you feel about, we can start communicating. You know, I don't want to overly do webinars. People's times are valuable, but we can just sort of put this in motion and say, okay, here's the assignment for next time. Please identify all the programs that you believe could lend themselves to developing an SROI scenario. And then we put that forward, then we can add them up and see, you know, the 80-20 rule, see how many are consistent across the agencies, send them back for review. And I guess rather than waste your time on this, if we get that the first part done fairly quickly, the next step would be, what are all the services associated with those programs, both direct and referral services? And that would be the next one to do. Okay, so basically what we're doing is building a logic model. Okay, and we could actually use that template. And then the next thing would be the outcomes. And again, don't inhibit yourself on this. Just whatever you're thinking about, you know, and that's what I would see the next step here. So, and we can, you know, turn this around fairly quickly. Lawrence, maybe the thing to do is one of the ways we could shoot it to you and you could communicate directly to the agencies if that works, or David, or we can do it ourselves, but it might be easier, or, you know, you keep track of it. Depends on what you want. But either way, we'll figure that out, how you want to do it. So
about data collection now, Fred, you know, put my Roma hat on. So how would we like to receive this kind of input, and in what format do you have in mind?
Well, off the top of my head, we could create a form, you know, basically a logic model, use Excel or something, and list the programs and list the services. I wouldn't go beyond that first step, because I would actually list the programs first. Okay, and we could send this back and forth. So we could put, you think about it, you know, your 2 axes. You could have your agencies on your go back to high school algebra here. Your agencies on your X out case horizontal, and then the services on the vertical, you know, the Y, and shoot that out, not the services, the programs, and just identify them, and maybe a rationale for it. Okay, in other words, why do you feel this is important? And then we could take that back, you know, essentially aggregate it into a single document and then send it back to the work group for review. And so that way we'll choose our programs. And then the next step would be, having done that, we would send it back and say, okay, now that we have this, what are all the services? So it's before we do any of the fiscal involving the fiscal people, let's just get the programmatic side ironed out. And after the services come back, again, step 3, so we don't want to waste people's time. And you know, then I'd send it back out for the outcomes. What are all the possible outcomes? And this is for direct and referral services. So that would give us our model. And at that point, then the harder work begins of monetizing the services and the outcomes. But I just as soon nail down the programs and, you know, then the services and the outcome before we do the cost, obviously. So that's my working work plan, and we could put that in writing. It's sort of been outlined in the existing work plan anyway. So does anyone have any thoughts? And by the way, everyone here is an expert, so please, everyone's input is valuable. So.
When you say send out, do you mean like a shared document, or are we sending out an email document that everybody's gonna
Yeah,
have?
we can. I guess we could, I don't know, this would be up to, we could put something on either Google Drive. I mean, that's one way of doing it. Anyone have a particular one? I mean, you could obviously do it manually with Excels and you can consolidate, or you could put it on Drive into a document. Anyone have thoughts on it, one way or the other?
Oh, I tend to agree with Cynthia. The shared doc is a good way to go. Sorry, I spoke over somebody though.
Someone else here?
Okay, maybe I spoke over myself.
All right, so I'm assuming everyone, I mean, and we've used Google Drive, okay, for sharing, so we could set up whatever you want to call it, a place on Google Drive that we could all go to, put it in so everyone can see each other's work, identify. So so we'll begin that process. That's fine with me. Yeah, so it becomes a living document. And I also think we should, if it in a true prototype, we also need to build a little narrative along with this, and that is, it's like the story, right? Isn't it? We always sometimes say the Roma is about a story. I think we need to also document our process here. How do we go about doing this? How do we build a consensus? Because other folks would want to know, rather than just trying to reinvent the wheel. I think for years, I always focused on product until one day someone educated me that, the process is also important. And I think we need to do both. Okay, so I think we will run, a story here about how to go do this. So, but that's how I so we'll put this in writing, I guess, follow up in the next couple of days. And how often do we want to meet? I mean, or do we wait to do we set a time? Do you want to do? Well, the program, I don't know, Lawrence, I mean, the original contract goes to the end of May. We could always extend it, I guess. And I talked to David about that a little bit. And part of it is how quick we can pull this together. I think this first part is fairly simple. I mean, conceptually simple, take a little bit of time. But when we're talking about for example, what is a unit of case management cost? I've always estimated it somewhere between $150 to $200 an hour. When you add in, literally everything, okay? The salary, the benefits, the cost of the business operating, if you have a mortgage or rent, all of that type of good stuff, unemployment insurance, workers' comp, it's essentially how a business operates, right? So, but that's the type of thing we need to come up with. I'm guessing this is where I think I rely on the expertise of the agencies, how your own fiscal people. So I assume most agencies have some way of doing that. Probably not everyone, but I think what most agencies do. Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate that. And you're the CFO, right? So that would be great. Okay, good. All right. And then the next step would be, after we figure that out, I think you'll be mildly horrified when you see what it costs to produce an hour's worth of services. We're not cheap, and if we're honest about it, yeah.
Yeah, first of all, I really like the idea of documenting the methodology and the process that we're undertaking to create this SROI calculator, because I think we are going to serve as a model for the rest of the nation. And then secondly, I just wonder, Tracy, if you already have a methodology for calculating this, should we utilize the same methodology across the 8 agencies so that we are comparing apples to apples?
So
it may not be possible. I don't know.
I know how much time is put into each, and I can tell you by cost, by activity. What I have a hard time doing, because I need to understand the story, is how that translates into an ROI. And usually, see, I'm looking at Pritika, because her and I, once we brainstorm how it needs to look, we're going to create a template by each one of our programs.
So what I was thinking, because it's going to be a little gnarly to have 17 different templates on day one. What I'd like to propose, and if that's okay, is that we, at least for us, I mean, you all can do what you need, but we're just going to select one project or program, and then we're really going to work the heck out of it. Because I think if we stretch ourselves too thin and trying to do it times 17 programs, we're going to lose momentum. So I like what you said, Lawrence, and it made me think, I wonder if we should do this. It's part of our goal 4, but perhaps instead of looking at an actual program, we look at like the HR department and put a dollar amount to retention and recruitment efforts, but also just turnover rates in general. I mean, we have general ideas, but the reason I was thinking that one in particular is because there's already, I think, but Tracy, you can help me here, is I think there's published sources that could help us monetize what that means.
See, I would be kind of more inclined to want to show what the social return on investment is on utility assistance. It's very easy for me to put that together and to see, like, when we put $1 of utility assistance out into the world, one, it costs us much for it to happen. And then two, this is the general benefit to our local economy.
Yeah, that would be helpful for a direct program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, pretty good. You raise an interesting point here, and that is, which again, we all know this. What does it cost to run an agency? I think is what you were suggesting. And I think we should keep that in our thinking. But I think the first step would probably be to take a program simply because it's better understood. But you're absolutely right. I think, what does it cost to run an agency? I think that is important. I would still like us to sort of do the laundry list, put everything out there, but then you could simply say, this is the one I want to work on now. Okay, so but that to me, the consensus, because we still have to, and maybe we do more than one, but I don't want to lose the fact of what does it cost to run an agency? I mean, this is very real. But again, I think it's like utility, and I think we sometimes forget about the benefit to the local economy. I remember talking to an ED years ago, and he had this, it was obviously not real in a sense, but he wanted 1 week to pay all of his vendors with $2 bills, because his point was, we also pump a ton of money into the local economy, whether it was food, supplies, things like that. And we sometimes overlook that too. So I think that's part of that big picture, that you are sometimes people forget the community action agencies are an economic engine, and people don't realize that. And I think it is lost. I'm glad that was brought up, because I think that's important. But that certainly goes into our overall description. But I think what you want to do is hook people on some of the programs that are out there first, that they're more familiar with, housing program, utility, weatherization is one of my favorites for that. It's, as I say, nuts and bolts, brick and mortar. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Something that people can grasp, so. But that's good. And I think in terms of Pat's comment, I think they're probably generally accepted accounting principles that most agencies would adhere to. And I think what we do want to come up with is a common methodology for that, Pat. So if Tracy has a good one, let's take a look at it. If your CFO has a good one, we can take a look at it. My guess is they're going to be similar, just by the nature of the accounting, and especially nonprofit accounting is pretty straightforward, or else you all go to jail, right? So.
It's always the CFO that goes to jail if you're in trouble. I carry this around, that no matter what, it'll be me who goes. So nobody can violate anything, because I like coffee.
Well, Tracy, you could take the hit for all of us. I appreciate that. Yeah. No, you're right. It's right. It's usually where the embezzlement occurs, right? So, oh man. All right.
I think too, Frederick, I think this is going to be so beneficial for our state oversight department. I think that there's a trend going on right now in our state department that really discounts the value of the agencies and the costs of doing business. And it's the state doesn't have a handle on that at all. And yet they're going, oh my God, and so I think that being able to, put this in a format for them to see and give value, and how do we incorporate them into this SROI? I mean, they're providing services towards our goals and accomplishments, and there's a cost for that part of the business as well. So, maybe along the lines of what Lawrence was saying, including the employees, so they see the benefit, well, include the state, so they see
Yeah,
what they're
yeah.
providing. Just a thought.
No, that's actually, again, this is why we're having a discussion here. I've been taking notes. You're absolutely right about educating. Again, when you're around a while, you get war stories. And I remember when we do our business, we have an hourly rate. And I remember the state person said, "Why is your rate so high?" And I said, "Do you pay for parking? No. Do you pay for sick leave? No. Do you pay for your health care? No. Do you pay?" He understood what was going on. In other words, I said, "I have to put all of that into my hourly rate." And that was the end of the discussion. But what surprised me is how little this individual knew, but also willing to hear me out, because I think part of that is the education process of explaining. Frankly, this goes back to Aubrey, fundamental economics. A lot of folks have no idea how this stuff works. They just don't. And it concerns me because I think part of, our role legally as advocates, I think it'll be advocate/education, because we have a major responsibility to educate people. It's that simple. And then you educate people, then you get, how could I say, proponents, you get people willing to listen and work with you and go, "Hey, this is a good deal," things like that. Yeah. And then they'll fund it. I mean, the other thing is, there's this, what's it called? Oh gosh. There's a movement on the, what is it? The investor community out there. What's the one in, what's it? The David or Lawrence, the one in San Diego I mentioned to you. It's a group working on the child care homes, the investment group, private investment group. It's like, I always forget the acronym. I think it's MDF. But at any rate, the point is there are private investment groups that want to help out socially, and they put, whether it's wealthy people, corporations, foundations, and they do want a return. So there is a built-in business model for these groups. I'm just killing me, just I can't remember the name.
Is that mission-driven finance?
Thank you. Thank you.
Found the note. I found it.
I was looking for it myself. Yeah. All right. Mission-driven finance. You should Google it. There's a group in San Diego doing this, and they're basically brokers. And what they do is they are brokers between people that want to donate money and looking for good nonprofit investments. There happens to be one in San Diego that we're actually working with, totally unrelated to this. And there's one in Denver that I've done a little work with. They actually asked us for help in evaluation. So, but what they're trying to do is, these are investors, but they want something back, but they're not looking for a huge gain, and they're really generous about this. So if you Google mission-driven finance San Diego, you'll get to the agency there that's doing the work. So I said we just started working with them a few weeks ago. But what we're looking at, just so you know, is childcare homes, trying to figure out ROI for family, in other words, people running their own childcare business and things like that. So, but it's not part of community action. It's, well, it could be, but it's, So yeah, mission-driven finance, something to keep in mind. This, if they can see proof, there's money out there. It's just looking for a good home, is how it works. So people obviously want to make a good investment. So these are good talking points here, and I really, this is good. This is good. But it's that little things like that in terms of educating the state folks, educating the clients, okay? Thinking about the cost of doing business, thinking about the value in terms of community action as an economic, the fact that you're employing people in a community, they're spending money, right? They go to the store. So all of those little things that are so obvious, but they're not obvious at the same time. So we need to do almost a primer on how this thing really works. So any thoughts? I did a lot of talking here, but I'm more than happy to end the meeting shorter, but it's your call. You can go.
As folks think about their questions here, do you want to consider when our next meeting time?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Anyone have to shovel snow today? Does anyone know what snow is? Okay. Fine. Yeah. All right. Yeah, so today's what, the 27th? Well, let me ask you this, just to put it out there. Let's assume we set up this shared connection through Google Drive, okay? Shared drive. Would a week or a week and a half be sufficient time to yourself respond or check with staff? And basically, well, actually, a week should be able to do it, I would think, just to get the programs and why these programs would be there. So if we gave a week after we set up the drive, say 1 week, and then what we could do is take a quick look at that. You could look at it yourselves as this develops, and then send it back out once that's in for services. And then in the same document, show the association linking the services to the programs. At that point, we could call a meeting, maybe at that, because that's the point, sort of a break point, I think, where we have the services and the programs to say, okay, these are the ones we think we're going to do. So I wouldn't want to do the outcomes and have some of that work not be used. Don't want to waste anyone's time. So I don't know, do you think 2 weeks after we set it up, given a couple of days to get that going? 2 weeks seems to be a few shaking heads here. Good, all right. So we could set up the next meeting. So I'm just looking at a calendar here. So you're roughly talking, I don't know, the week of, let's see, March. Gotta flip over to a March calendar here.
That's March 13.
Yeah, okay, somewhere that week would be good. We could put out a, whatever you want to do, a poll to see, maybe put 2 or 3 days, the week of the 13th.
Yeah, I can do the end of this week of the 6th, the beginning of the week of the 13th, kind of.
Okay.
Dates in that time frame, and then you all get an opportunity to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So
yeah, so if you can send out, I assume, a doodle poll or something. Okay,
yep.
Great. Yep. All right, that's good. Oh, okay. David pointed out that NCAF is there, so.
NCAF, okay, maybe a different.
David, are you going to NCAF or?
Sadly.
Well, David,
I'm excited.
You know the basic rule, David, you leave your wallet at home because Bradley will hit you up for a donation, So, by the way, I'll share this with you. You all know PJ Davis. All right, so when we were at the a few months ago, PJ, myself, and others were at Colorado, had a Region 8 annual conference, and Bradley was speaking. And I was speaking, and PJ was there and all that stuff. And Bradley kind of knows who I am, but doesn't know who I am, which was fine with me. But he came up to PJ and he started talking with her. And I watched PJ's reaction. And Bradley actually told PJ that he invented Roma. And I thought, that's interesting. So he's the father of Roma. I did not know that. He might have been talking about the tomato sauce, but I don't know. But so. But that was Mr. Bradley. So the father of Roma, put that into your CV. If anything, Jim Masters might lay claim to that. So, but at any rate, so yeah, whatever works in terms of people's calendars, or if you're traveling or whatever. David, where's it being held?
It's in DC. It's the legislative visits.
Oh, okay, that's right. That's right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. All right. So if we're good with that, so the game plan is, 1, we'll set up a Google Drive. 2, we'll just put a little follow-up note to what hopefully the expectations are for getting on there. And 3 would be, let's see, 3 would be setting, basically setting up the meeting and then having the meeting. And then from there, step 4 would be, now that we would have agreed essentially with the discussion as to, and then everyone will have a chance to review the work, obviously, so you'll have your ideas about what's doable. And think about it in terms of marketing, public relations as well, or programs that are at risk, or programs that are anything that would influence as to why you choose the program, or ease of, getting the program and things like that. So, and again, I think everyone's input is extremely valuable here. I wrote some notes down, and I think I really appreciate the thinking behind this. And obviously, more will appear as we do this. So what do you think, Lawrence, David, Pat, Tracy, David, Linda, Cynthia, Tom, Aubrey? Any thoughts?
Sounds great. No, it sounds great.
Good. Okay. All right.
Yeah, when this recording wraps up, we'll send this out with all the things that Fred just mentioned a moment ago, and try to keep it in one email so we're not flooding inboxes as best we can. And
yeah, and knowing how things work, I do want to make sure we maintain momentum, because I think this is important, and it's timely. I mean, I think it's always timely, but I think it'd be nice to sort of put this front and center, because I think it's an important tool for us. So excellent. Okay, so quick thing for Crystal and Tom. Or I guess either Crystal or Tom, can you set up a quick follow-up team so we could just debrief ourselves? Okay, great. All right, so are we good? Okay, all right, well, thank you. Anything, Lawrence, David, you want to add, or anyone else want to jump in here?
I really appreciate everybody taking the time to get this going with us. I know it's been a long time coming, as Fred has mentioned, so we're the ones to pull it together. So really appreciate your time and attention.
Yeah, I just think this is really good. So it sort of closes the loop with Roma day one of bringing that module back front and center. So, okay, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to
Yeah.
quickly say a huge thank you to David and Lawrence for organizing this. This has really kind of been a dream of mine at some point, and to have the opportunity to participate on this work group is really exciting. So I just want to thank you.
Great. Good.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Patricia. And if people feel inclined, they could let CSD know how excited they are, because they were interested to see how this was going. So
yeah,
anybody's excited as the work goes along. It's always good to let them know that we think it's going to be a great product. So
yeah, I think so. So
Will
Cynthia,
do.
what's that?
Just will do. I'll let
Yeah.
CSD know. Thank you.
Good.
Definitely.
So Cynthia, do you play guitar? You're muted, Cynthia. I guess Cynthia doesn't want to answer that question. She knocked herself off. And I saw the guitar there. I didn't know. I mean, I said, Linda, you have a very nice cabinet there with artifacts and antiques. So it's always fun to see the inside of people's homes, offices. Yeah, so we'll find out next time if Cynthia plays the guitar. That'll be the question. So, okay.
Thank you all.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you all. All right, take care. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.